You've heard me talk about podcast interviews being a great way to grow your brand and grow your business. I firmly believe that you're not one funnel away, you're one conversation away, and that businesses' biggest problem is obscurity. Right now, there are hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of ideal customers that would love to buy from you. There's just one problem. They don't know you exist. But what if you have a very geographically limited market? Now, let me give you an example here. A friend of mine came up to me and he sells high-end stereo systems in the local community. So you've got to have a certain amount of income and you've got to be probably within a 20-mile driving radius of Kalamazoo, Michigan. And he said, can I use targeted podcast interviews to grow my brand and grow my business? And I said, yes, but not in the way you're thinking. You see, there's no podcast that says high-tech audio lovers in Kalamazoo County. And why isn't there? Well, probably the same reason he didn't want to start a podcast just focused on that. It's so small, so niche that he probably wouldn't have enough people on that. But let's look at another example. There's a gentleman by the name of Marcus Sheridan. Now, you may have heard him. He's a great speaker. He's a great communicator. But if you go back about a dozen years, he had a different story. You see, it was about 2008. The economy was tanking. He had a pool company, a pool installation company called River Pool and Spas that really installed pools around the Northern Virginia area. You talk about a limited amount of customers. If you were a customer and you heard about him in New York or California, he wasn't going to drive all the way out there for a sales call. They weren't going to install it for you. But he realized that he had to do something else. He had to get out there in front of his customers. Now, a dozen years ago, this was blogging. Today, blogs are largely saturated, but just go with the story here. So a dozen years ago, he started to think, I'm going to start putting out all the answers that my competitors don't. If anybody asks a question, I'm going to be the one that puts it out there. I'm going to be the one that is seen as an educator, as a resource. I'm going to get that know, like, and trust. And those people in my area, well, I'll get them as customers. Those people outside my area, it really doesn't cost me anything more to serve them. So Marcus Sheridan started to put out blogs. Later, he put out a book called They Ask, You Answer. And that was his marketing philosophy. That was the strategy he used. You know, what's the difference between an in-ground pool and an above-ground pool? How much does a pool cost? What should I look for? All of these things he was openly talking about. Now, people found it. He got well-known in the industry. They shared it. He got backlinks. He got social media mentions. And you know what? If you were in his little area there, you probably became a customer of his. Now, he had eventually worked out where he was able to take those leads that were outside of his area and help those people by introducing them to someone else that installed pools or a pool manufacturer. But his idea is let me go out and answer the questions for the entire world, knowing that my small area will help from that too. So let's go back to my example that I used of somebody that's installing stereos in Kalamazoo. Well, they could do a similar thing on podcast interviews. They could go on real estate podcasts to talk about the value of it. They could go on entertainment podcasts. They could go on popular, timely podcasts and say, you don't have to give up the theater experience just because the theaters are closed. You can do this in your home. And you could talk about different things there. Now, granted, you're going to be heard by tens of thousands of people. And of those, only a small amount are going to be your customers that live in Kalamazoo, Michigan. But there are other things, that's benefits that are going to come from that. You can use those podcast interviews as proof sources so that you can put it out in local media. You could put it out in your newsletter. You could put it on your Facebook. So when people go and look and who should I work with? Wow, this guy is or gal is the expert. Look they're interviewed everywhere and they're the expert in this. You also have the search engine optimization value. Now you've got people that are linking back to your site from all around the world. So with that, your site is going to come up higher in the search engine optimization ranking. Other thing is social media, right? If you've just got a customer base that is geographically limited, how many people are going to engage with you on social media? Probably not a whole lot. It probably won't look that impressive. But if you've got people from around the world that are following you, boy, people will look at your social media and go, wow, they are legit. Now you could use the same thing for other geographically limited. Maybe it's a car dealership. Yeah, you can only sell cars in your area, but boy, if you're the expert, that might make you stand out. What if you're a builder? Well, if you're the one that everybody goes to, that could really make you stand out in your area. It's definitely a longer term play. You're not going to get on a podcast and get all kinds of customers right away from it. But really, we're not looking at transactions. We're looking at long-term relationships here. It's never been easier today to get a customer, right? All you need to do is be a penny cheaper than the other person on Amazon, and they'll buy from you. But it's never been harder to build a business, to build that reputation. And that takes time. That takes exposure. Always hear me say exposure brings opportunity. So just because you're geographically limited doesn't mean that you can't use podcast interviews. But what it does mean is you must be very strategic and be clear on the goals you're going after. If you have any questions about podcast interview, please reach out to me at tom@interviewvalet.com. I get my ideas for these podcast tips of the day from different people that ask me questions. This question today came from a friend in Australia. And I think that just shows that the power of podcasting, the power of media, and what a great world we live in today. If you've got a question, go ahead and send it to me, and I'll be happy to answer it on Podcast Guest Profits Tip of the Day. Has obscurity become your biggest problem? Stages have disappeared. Conferences are canceled. In-person meetings seem like a distant memory. Your prospective customers still need you. They still need to hear from you. Stop trying to break through the noise. It's not working. Get in on the conversation. Get featured as the expert guest on targeted podcast interviews. Podcasts are hot. Listenership is up 20% in 2020. Podcasts are the new digital stage. Leverage other people's established platform as a featured guest. Since 2015, Interview Valet has helped over 500 leading brands get featured on over 20,000 podcast episodes. You're the guest. We take care of the rest. Stop being the best kept secret. Find out how we can help you leverage targeted podcast interviews to get heard, to grow your brand, to grow your sales, to be recognized as the market leader.